Olympic cross country on Eurosport.
Day 14 of the Olympic Games, and a big day it is here at the Snow Harp Stadium. Coming up a little later, the 4x5 kilometer Nordic combined relay that will decide which team wins that gold medal championship. But before that, it's the women's 30 kilometer freestyle, the last opportunity for one woman at these Olympic Games to become an Olympic champion. Well, it's also a big day downtown in Nagano. Semi-final day at the hockey, and coming up this evening, it's Russia versus Finland. I go for the Russians to take that. And this afternoon, the really big one, it's Canada versus the Czech Republic. Paul Ferguson and Richard Beaupre will look forward to your company for that. I think the Canadians, well, I think I will see all the flags will be there for Canada, and lots of chance of go Canada go. I'm going to go for the Canadians to go through to the final against the Russians, but not everyone in our commentary team believes it's going to go that way. Our Czech colleague and reporter Michaela Drobna, she's, as you might expect, absolutely passionate that it's going to be a Czech team that goes through to the final. But whatever happens out on the ice, it's sporting rivalry in the box here. Well, now to get to business, and alongside me a man who's survived all that Japanese acupuncture can throw at him in the last 24 hours, Patrick Winterden, fresh across from Nozawa and the biathlon. Patrick, good morning.
Morning, David. Feeling very healthy, actually, and I don't know whether I put it down to the acupuncture or the sushi, but on good form, and enjoyed the trip across from Nozawa on to the Snow Harp Stadium to see a little bit of cross-country without the rifles for a change.
Absolutely. So we've got a fascinating contest here. I think over this 30-kilometer freestyle, those who were with us 4 years ago for the Olympics may remember the 30-kilometer race then was run in classic style. It is alternated between the Olympics, and today are certainly no easy task. And this is what they face: two 15-kilometer loops.
David, the first loop's fairly critical. We've got a very long climb out of the stadium up to the 3-kilometer stage, and that's the full height gain on the whole course. So it's going to be interesting to see who goes out fast and hopes to hold it. I think we'll see some of the Russians going fast. Belmondo tends to start a little steadier and then make her charge later on. The other major hill comes at about 6 kilometers on the first loop, and a very, very severe climb indeed. I don't think it will play a role on the first 15 Ks, but the second time round, that may be where either someone breaks or someone makes their charge. So two critical points, the first 3 and the hill at 6 kilometers or 21.
Well, the weather conditions this morning, it's overcast here, and just to give you an idea, it's not a cold morning. When we came out to get into our cars, absolutely no frost on the windscreen this morning, and waxing, although it's skating, not so important, but getting the skis right is important.
Well, the 30-kilometer distance, the longest individual race for the women, and the waxing for that distance is almost impossible. The wax isn't going to last much longer than 15 kilometers, and it's then the ski base that is so important, the preparation of the actual PTEX under the ski. And that's really where the Germans have had problems in the biathlon. It's not the choice of wax, but it's the choice of ski.
Well, the venue here filling up all the time, and will get bigger, the crowds, as we get nearer to the Nordic combined, and we're advised that the Emperor Akihito and indeed Princess Nobuko will soon be here to watch the action with the Japanese fans, who have a difficult task in the Nordic combination to retain the Olympic title they've won for the last couple of seasons, but it's not out of question they might snatch a bronze. But now to concentrate on the women's 30-kilometer free. We've both looked at the form, and I think we're both agreed, Patrick, that the woman to beat is Italy's Stefania Belmondo, who won the 30-kilometer freestyle championship back in '92 in the Olympic Games.
Well, she's been so strong all season, and I think this has been her main focus for the year. She knows that's her best chance. With Belba slightly off form, then Belmondo has to be the woman to watch.
first away. There were 68 drawn on the list, but we've been notified that 3 will not start. Without being disrespectful to them, no significant withdrawals, as Elena Gayasova of the Ukraine starts the competition. Elena, who had the misfortune to be disqualified in the opening race, the 15-kilometer classic, because she skated. Well, let's hope she doesn't get it vice versa today and suddenly break into stride and glide. Suzanne King for the United States. The United States, who've had mixed fortunes here. The hockey team pretty disgusted with themselves, getting chucked out of the competition without even really getting to the medal round.
Really, their highlight of the games has been the freestyle events, where they did well in both the moguls and the aerials, but certainly disappointing at the biathlon as well.
Now here's the woman that we think's our pathfinder, Alzbita Havrancikova for the Slovakian squad. She's mighty experienced, 34 years of age, but if you go back through her record, she's been most effective over this distance. She's only had a couple of races here at the Olympics and relatively fresh, and I think that could also be important.
Well, I think that's a major factor. I think she's got 2 other things on her side. One is her age at 34, prime age for this longer distance, and also the fact that she's been so close on many occasions. I think she may be hungrier than most to take a medal of some colour today.
So we watch her with real interest. The next one away, Antonella Confatola, and she's a youngster, just in her 20s, and this her first Olympic experience. Quite a tough test for her, but the Italians, of course, they have Belmondo. Svetlana Kamotskaya for Belarus. Again, one of the more experienced women in the games, celebrated her 34th birthday at the beginning of January. Not quite sure how she's going to get on with this, because arguably she's a better classic skier than she is skater. The other point which I think is really on this long, grueling haul here, Patrick, they've said right since the time they arrived here to train and get ready for the games, both the men and the women, these courses are so hard, and one of the huge problems is taking on refreshment, getting a drink, because the climbs are amazingly hard, and then the descents are so quick.
Well, I think it's of vital importance, not so much on the shorter races. They may have a quick drink in the 15-kilometer, but certainly in the women's 30, the men's 50, it is absolutely essential.
Well, here's a woman with a mission today, Jelena Valde, her last chance to become an individual Olympic champion. And it's a special day for her. We wouldn't make her the big favorite, but when you know that it's your last opportunity, because she has announced that this will be her final season, she will bow out whatever happens, maybe she's going to find that little bit of extra fire to fight this.
Well, I think everyone really wants her to win it. I'd love to see her come in, take the gold. It's been a lifelong ambition. She's won over twice as many races as anybody else yet to win an Olympic title, but the body will determine how far she can go. The mind will play its part, but it won't play the whole part.
Germany and Kathi Wilhelm, well, you mentioned they've had sort of problems with sorting out their skis. There's another woman who we spoke to a little earlier who's very nervous, but she's got a major chance, I think, today to do something special, and it's the Austrian who's going to start with bib number 35. She goes away in just about 12 minutes from now, as we see Stefania Belmondo getting ready, and that's Austria's Maria Turl, the long-distance specialist. They've been testing skis, she and her Norwegian waxing and coachman Holger Lundamo for 2 days now, and she feels really good, and she's desperately nervous that they don't make a silly mistake.
Yeah, I mean, it's a critical stage. We've already discussed the skis, and we know they're going to play a major part, perhaps not so much as they did in the early part of the Olympics, but Thurl's critical thing is it long enough for her? She was so good in the Loppet races last year, dominating the events. There's not so much competition, but she was very strong. She was a long way ahead. I don't think this race is quite long enough for her.
Here goes the first of the Japanese, the first of the 2 Yokoyama sisters, with a big roar from the crowd. Wearing bib 11 for Bulgaria, Irina Nikolchina. again, relatively inexperienced and certainly hasn't made the headlines as yet in her cross-country career.
This is her favourite event, though, and there's it's a big advantage when you do favour an event, because your mental attitude is much stronger than someone who dreads or fears the 30, as so many of us do. And I think that may be a telling point. Not likely to be top 10, but certainly could get a personal best, and that would certainly boost her morale for the coming seasons.
12, this is Monica Lazarut for Romania. It's good to see these athletes from the eastern part of Europe. They're coming with very little financial support, not the sort of support that the Norwegians and the Finns can put into their racing. But as they get the possibility of travelling into the World Cup, getting support there, that's going to bring them on hopefully in the years to come. So now we're on the first climb, and that's, as you can see, Havrancikova, and just keeping an eye here on the snow. It's not a cold day by any means. Just check on the weather here, and we'll just give you an idea for those of you who like the facts and figures.
Well, we've got the snow temperature at minus 0.4 of a degree, so it's near enough to zero, and that will favour the hydrofluorocarbon waxes, as they're called. The humidity is not as high as it's been over recent days, and what they'll be hoping is that the humidity stays roughly the same throughout the race, and that's a guessing game. They've got to predict what the weather is going to do, whether the skies will clear and the sun comes out, and as we'll see groups of teams coming through because they've guessed right, and we may see other teams who expected to do well dropping back simply because the conditions have changed throughout the race.
And no wind to speak of at all. So Havrancikova, as we suggested, is the pace setter, the pathfinder that's going to give us a guide to the others that follow. And other news coming up, I can tell you, very big disappointment in the Finnish camp. I'm afraid the virus has got to them. Satu Salonen, she's down with fever and flu. That's really disappointing. And the other news is that we may have no Finns in the men's 50K. I believe, as I speak, Mika Mulila may be on his way home. It's really gone through their team. They got it last. They had the reward, if you like, if that's the way of putting it, of avoiding it in the first part of the games, the first week. But I'm afraid that Mulila, Isometsa, they've all succumbed now, along with a good many of the women. Other news, sickness as well. Tony Mogren of Sweden. And as I mentioned that about Finland, let me tell you that Anita Nyman of Finland, who was due to start, in fact, out as well. So she's clearly suffering the same way as Satu did. Just back to Tony Mogren, he hasn't raced here for Sweden, and that's a real disappointment. He was out skiing, apparently, Patrick, yesterday, and the first time he's done any speed work, he came in and he said he felt absolutely dreadful. So they're not really quite sure whether he's going to start or not on Sunday.
Well, everyone's been suffering from the virus, as you call it, and noticeable that the press are getting it as well, and it's who knows who started it. Some believe it was David Goldstrom himself, because he arrived coughing and spluttering. But the main factor is that when the media get it, the guys who are not skiing and racing, it lasts for 3 days. The athletes are suffering considerably longer than that, and as you mentioned, the Swedish camp were hit early on, but good news for them. We've got Niklas Jonsson and Henrik Forsberg, who are both back to sort of 90%, 95% fitness, and maybe a slim chance of them taking a medal in the 50 kilometre.
But the way it shapes up, it could well be that Belmondo will be triumphant today for the Italians, and I know that Pietro Pilo Cotra has absolutely focused on this with Pozzi for the 50 on Sunday, and I can see this being a big long-distance double for the Italians. But that's the blue ribbon, the final event on Sunday morning in the early hours, as we go back now to this race. The red group, the first of the red group, well, Elena Valby goes pretty early, just after Taranenko, and they're nearly about to start now. The women who we believe will play out the drama of this final gold medal test. It's a wonderful stadium here in Snow Harp. I haven't had the chance to go over to Nozawa yet, but I've had an invitation from Patrick, so I'll be over there tomorrow. But from what you've seen, this is a great facility.
Well, it's the same throughout. They've invested over £1.5 million, or 3.5 billion yen as it is in Nozawa, purely for a biathlon stadium. And it's the mod cons, as you'd expect, all the computers the latest, and really working clockwork. I mean, superb performance, and a lot of that's down to the officials and the volunteers who put so many hours in to help the event along.
Yeah, it's interesting now. The people in Nagano, they felt a bit isolated when they heard the games were going to come, that all their traffic has been stopped, they've been restricted. But now in the last couple of days, you get this feeling from them. They're likely to go on for another 2 weeks. They're enjoying it, and they're enjoying meeting people from other countries. So Valentina Shevchenko now for the Ukraine. Her best race so far at these games was 11th place in the opening 15-kilometer classic, and I think she'll struggle to do as well as that today. But she's really the first of the athletes that will perhaps give Havanchikova a chase. At the moment, looking at the early pace setters, Sinkovic of Belarus just a fraction faster than Havanchikova. Maja Helen Sorkmo for Norway, her first ever Olympic test. She hasn't raced here at all, and again a youngster in her 20s, and interesting to see how she does over this long distance. I've always thought of her as being more effective over the short distances, but we'll see. The Norwegians are up against it here.
Well, the Norwegians have always favoured the classic techniques, but there's no doubt about it that they've been working hard on the skating technique. You look at their biathletes, they are now the masters. So watch out for Sorkmo and Nielsen.
Yeah, Nielsen particularly, she's their top skater. One piece of news though, Anita Moen Guidon, bronze medalist from the opening race, the 15 Classic, she is not here. She could have been, and I think she would have gone very well. But she decided after the relay in which the Norwegians took the silver medal that she needed to get back home, wanted to get back home to her daughter, and so that's where she is. Now here's Jelena Valve, 29 years of age, and out of the Olympic start gate for the last time in her career. All those bronze medals in the games of '92 individually, but it's the gold individual medal that she wants.
Well, I think it's sad for Elena that this is actually a freestyle race. I think she's one of the athletes who hasn't advanced her technique over the years, and she's been left behind by some of the younger skaters. And really, the next hour and a half is probably going to be the most important of the last 5 years.
I think the other thing we should look for is that Brigitte Albrecht of Switzerland, she was skiing the 10 free at about the same pace as Elena Valve, and she's finished 10th in the Classic, 10th in the Pursuit. I think we might look at Valve and Albrecht and see how that relates, because Albrecht was a good race, but I think for Valve to win here, she's got to be great. The other thing is that when I saw Valve, she was on the third leg of the relay against Ellen Nielsen. She demolished Ellen Nielsen. She had much more power, but Nielsen had just come in for her first race, so again, difficult to weigh up how good Valve was. She certainly looked better than she had done in the first part of the games, when she finished a disappointing 17th in the 15-kilometer Classic, and as a result got dropped from the 5 and the 10.
Well, it's a bit of a mystery as to why Elena hasn't been performing to her best this season, and my personal thoughts are that she's overdone the training. She really focused on this, did very hard training at the beginning of the season as well as racing. Wasn't expecting to do well in the races, but I think she's just driven herself a little bit too far.
Antonina Ordina, one of the most experienced of the racers here, goes off for Sweden. Her target top 10, and she said after the relay she was for the first time at these games she was feeling something like her old self. So hopefully she's going to have a good day. Now Olga Danilova. Well, 2 gold medals and a silver. Whatever happens today, Olga's going to go home a very, very happy woman to her husband and twin sons, because she's had the games of her life, and she's really emerged out of the shadows in her own right to be a top cross-country star. And here's Brigitte Albrecht, who I will look at. We'll try and look at the times and the progress of her and Valbe. From Lux, 27 years of age, and Brigitte, as I said, 10th in both the 5 and the 10, and the Swiss in 4th place in the relay, and they were only a couple of seconds behind the Italians, but it was Belmondo's sizzling burst which dragged the Italians up from 9th to 3rd, with Belmondo picking up over half a minute that denied the Swiss.
But the one thing you've got to be aware of, it was a very impressive run, and you can't take anything away from her.
No.
But also notice that she didn't have the fastest time on that leg, and many of us thought she would. Lazutina was still considerably faster than Belmondo, despite the fact that she was safe and not having to push herself that hard.
But interestingly enough, look at the times of Belmondo in the relay. I know it's only 5K, but you can see there that they were pretty similar. Christina Smigon in picture. Now this is a tough day. Here is one of the most talented youngsters, double junior world champion last year. This is her first Olympic race, and it's a question of the shoulder. How much power has she got? I'll tell you why. January the 1st, New Year's Day, went out on the snowmobile with her boyfriend, and they collided with a tree. Very nasty. She really did damage to her shoulder. It meant an operation. They put a plate in. Then they found that the plate had restricted the movement of her arm by almost 90 degrees. So on the 2nd of February, they had to do it again, and it's an unknown quantity. Contrary would be the description for this young woman. Unknown is not the question we would say about her. We know she's in good form. We know she can win on this distance. She is the favorite, Stefania Belmondo.
A very gutsy skier indeed. One of the features we saw in the men's relay was the Italians. They wouldn't let go at any cost. But Belmondo is one of the women we can expect to charge in the last half of the race. And even if she's off the pace at 15 kilometers, you can never rule her out. As in Trondheim, although it was a classic race, she came back with a vengeance and closed the deficit on Velba by half of what it was. And I think she was the only one who made ground on Velba over the last 10 kilometers.
Well, here's Taranenko. Now, that is a good opening by Taranenko. Of course, you've got to set your own pace, but 15 seconds up on the likes of Sinkovic and Havrancikova suggests to me that she really means business. And when you've been 4th twice, it's pretty annoying to lose out on a medal. Valbe coming up to the same 1800-meter point. This is all climbing. There's almost no respite here until 3,000 meters.
Well, you can see this. You can see the gradient and the very fact that the tempo is slow. Velbo now approaching that line, and she's actually going to go into 2nd place. That, I think, is an intelligent start from Velba. She cannot afford to go too fast too soon. And remember, she's still got another 1.5 kilometers of climb before they get their first rest on the steep descents.
About to start top right there, Marit Mikkelsplass of Norway. Marit, who has picked up the silver medal in the relay with the Norwegian team. But here's the woman of the game so far in cross-country terms, Larissa Lazutina, 2 individual gold medals and the relay gold, as well as a silver for good measure in the opener behind Danilova. So never out of the first 2 since the games began. And she really is a woman I think we have to respect here, because she is in such good form and she's got nothing to lose. I think she'll be relaxed and she'll really have a go at this, as will this young Russian, Chepalova, who also former junior world champion, and skating is very much her forte. This is the first little bit of downhill that they get, but it is only momentary at 1800 meters, and then they're up and on their way again.
Well, I think Chepalova is going to be the future of the Russian team once Velba retires at the end of this season. But my one big question mark for today's race is whether she's just a little bit too young, and whether she'll have the stamina over the full 30 kilometers.
Well, she did win the 15 free in Kavgalovo, and that was in the World Cup, and that was a good sign. That was her first real success at top level. And there you can see Ordina 15 seconds behind Chepalova. So the real question is whether, as you say, Valbe, with all that little bit more experience, paces herself better. Chepalova, maybe she's just a little bit too eager. But Lazutina is really the last of the major challenges. Now this will give us a little test. I was talking about Valbe's time and Albrecht. Valbe was through with about 7 seconds off the pace behind Chepalova. And that's who she's chasing now. Brigitte Albrecht also a bit behind. Won't be too much between them. Albrecht 12 seconds. So Valbe just that little bit quicker. And I think she, as I said, I think she'd need to be quicker than Albrecht.
Yes, I think. But I'm still concerned that Valbe doesn't go off too fast. She may well be strong enough now. She's been improving in form throughout the games. And with the very fact that the first 3 kilometers is a climb, it's really the second checkpoint that we're interested in. Once they've gone over that and down the downhill, then we'll also get an indication of whose skis are running well.
Paruzzi, one of the Italian women, absolutely beside themselves with Belmondo's sprint in. And I have to say, of course, the other woman in that quartet, it was Karen Moroder, the baby who'd come in for Valbuza, who'd gone sick, and then it was Paruzzi. On the third leg was Di Centa, Manuela Di Centa, also in her last Olympics. Not a force individually, but very nice for her to get a bronze to, round off her career. She was so unhappy in Trondheim to go away with such a poor performance. She didn't want to finish in that way, so I think that was a nice thing as well.
Well, as you say, I mean, it's nice to see people winning in their last races, but a little bit of sympathy for the Swiss and the Germans who are just so close. It's nice when the underdogs come through and show that they can compete with the major nations in this sport.
Yes, and the Czechs, who've got almost one of the youngest outfits, and they were down in 6th place, and they were, only 6 seconds off the bronze medal. So the encouraging thing is 1 or 2 more countries beginning to get 2 or 3 skiers together, and that's good news, because much as we admire the Russians, I have to say it sometimes gets a little tedious to see them always dominating. Now here's someone who we've got fingers crossed for today, Maria Thurl from Linz. As you mentioned earlier on, she absolutely dominated the World Loppet Series, the Dolomita Lauf, the American Birkebeiner. She was taking all of those races to win that prestigious title over 50, 60, and even longer distances.
Well, I think we'll find that Maria comes through at the end of the race. If she's going to make a move, it will come in the last 10. When it gets hard, perhaps her break will come at 21 kilometers when they hit the really severe hill for the last time. But my personal feeling is a little bit too short for her, and a different psychology used in these time trial races as opposed to the mass start.
To the Dubendale Hearts, arguably without Anita Moen-Guidon, that's why she's got this place. That's not to say that she hasn't had a reasonable series of races. She has. She was 6th equal in the 15K Classic. That was a good performance. And then 8th and 11th in the 2 pursuit races. But I think this 33 is a bit tough for her. Marit Mikkelsplas, another of the Norwegians who really, unlike your biathlon Norwegians, Patrick, a lot of the Bente Martinsen, Marit Mikkelsplas, they have worked extremely hard on classic, more than they have on skating.
Well, the classic's important, firstly because it's a slightly more technical, or considered to be more technical, but also because it develops the heart and lungs. Your cardiovascular system benefits from classic training more than it would from the skating. So that may be why they focus on it. But it's a mystery to me why the biathletes should cope with it so well. But bear in mind that the Norwegian male biathletes do 50% of classic training, just to ensure that they don't develop too much muscular development in the leg and develop slow twitch fibers as opposed to the quick ones that they need.
La Sutina through, just to give you an update now. We're only through 1,800 meters, so early days. There it is on the screen. It's Chepalova for Russia from Taranenko, the Ukrainian. Started well. Belmondo positive, right in 3rd place. La Sutina keeping touch with her, just 4 seconds behind. And La Sutina and Valbe within 0.1 of each other at the moment. And Albrecht, the best for Switzerland, in 6th place. So the race beginning as we see Ellen Nielsen coming up. Ellen, the #1 skater for the Norwegian squad. And their best hope, so they say today, for top honours. But I think she's got it all to do. So as Ellen Nielsen goes through just 8 seconds off the pace, we'll take a short break, but we'll be right back after these messages.
Wir stellen Jack Daniels Whisky immer noch genauso her, wie es Mr. Jack persönlich im Jahre 1866 vorgegeben hat. Schon nach dem ersten Schluck werden Sie verstehen, warum das auch immer so bleiben wird. Jack Daniels Tennessee Whiskey.
The winds of change are blowing. Carved by the winds of change. Hyundai.
On the slopes of Mount Higashidate, one of the most exacting of alpine skiing disciplines. A combination of speed and precision. Go too fast and you risk losing control. Go too slow and you risk losing.
Alpine skiing, the women's giant slalom tonight, 2:45 and 5:15 UK, presented on Eurosport by
Samsung and Volvo share the spirit.
Back live to the Olympic Games on Eurosport with Samsung.
So back live here on Eurosport, our 24-hour Olympic coverage. David Goldstrom together with Patrick Winterton. Thanks for staying up or getting up. We do appreciate it. And thanks also for all the faxes. Please keep them rolling in. I'll remind you of the fax line number a little later on. But the situation at the moment is that the athletes in this women's 30-kilometer freestyle are still on the climb, going up to 3,000 meters before they get this steep descent. And it's Julia Chepalova of Russia, who has a narrow advantage of 3 seconds over Taranenko of the Ukraine. Still, as they go away, there are still some just getting away now. The last starter will be away at 34 minutes past the hour. And leading this little group here, it's 14, that's Filippo, who's overtaken Oksana Yatskaya, who started 30 seconds ahead of her for Kazakhstan. And at least the French, good to see them with a cross-country team in. I have to say it, almost every major championship these days, it's very disappointing that somehow, some way, we can't have a British Nordic team.
Well, those days seem a long time ago, but really the whole thing needs rethinking, replanning, and we need to start from base routes again, as opposed to just throwing our money at someone who looks as though they might be able to make the top 30. And well, we'll wait and see. It's a long time off. I can't see it happening, certainly by 2002.
No. 7.3 kilometers, and Sinkovic, who was to the fore early on, still commanding the situation here. There you are, Filippo of France. But this is the only interesting thing I would say there is that Havranchikova has really, the gap has widened, because if I go back to 1.8 kilometers, the gap between Havranchikova and the Belarus woman who leads at the moment was much, much closer. Just trying to check on that. Sinkovic, they were just about 10 seconds, I think, between the two of them before. Natasha Leonardi for Switzerland, anchored the Swiss home to fourth place, but couldn't do anything about Belmondo. And it was the worst sight in the world when Belmondo came sprinting past. She sprinted past Anke Schulz of Germany, Kotsumova of the Czech Republic, and Leonardi. I mean, she just literally, Patrick, just went straight past them.
Yeah, it was quite noticeable that she had to work hard to catch them in the first place. And what we've seen in so many of the relay or the pursuit events is that the person catching then sticks in behind, but Belmondo didn't even give it a second thought, straight past, and I think that was a very wise tactic. And maybe Bjorn Daly will will be thinking maybe he should have made the break in the relay. I know it all turned out well for him in the long run, but it's interesting to see what sort of mentality they employ.
Yeah, he said he was better to win by just a narrow margin than by a long streak, but I thought he was being tongue-in-cheek about that. So still waiting for the leaders to come up. 7,300 meters after this point. There's a drop down. And here in picture now, Tasha Lutzen, and being followed by Christel Batra of Estonia, who's in fact got ahead of her, or what is it, Natasha Lutzen, who's overtaken.
I think the 7.3 kilometer stage is actually going to be very critical on the second loop. It's the highest point of the course, and from here on in the track is certainly not easy, but it's easier from here to the finish. So it will be the 23 kilometer mark next time round, and maybe the story will have developed.
So not much to add at the moment until we see the leaders. So Taranenko now into picture. Just behind Chepalova last time. We had the time check, but that was early on. And, interestingly enough, Taranenko gone straight past Shevchenko, taken a minute out of her already, so it's clear which one of these two is racing.
Yeah, this is a brave start by Taranenko. Remember, 30 kilometers is well, it is the longest distance, but it's not over the 2-hour mark, and once you're racing over 2 hours, it becomes a very different ball game. And I think that's why the men's 50, we see lots of developments. We know Bjorn Daly better than anyone else, who starts fast and then dies, and no doubt on Sunday we'll see the same thing happen to one or two other athletes. But the 30 kilometer won't take that sort of time margin. We're expecting times of around an hour and a half, maybe a little bit less.
So 41 seconds, the advantage over those who started before her, but it's not those that she'll be worried about, it's those who are coming up behind. Into picture now, Jelena Valbe. Now, Valbe was 7 seconds off the pace, behind Chepalova in terms of Taranenko, just 4 seconds away. Steady start, and she's made up that little deficit. And as you said, I think a really sensible start by Valbe.
Well, that's it. She didn't really push too hard on the first 3 kilometers, which is so tough, and well, really just warming up. And I think we'll see her. She'll really go for it second time round, provided the fuel is still in the tank, and that's the big question mark with Elena for today's race.
Chepalova coming up now. She's the one who just concerned us whether she was going just a bit too quick, too early, but 18 seconds, the drive is still on. Whether she hits a wall at 21 kilometers, we'll find out.
Well, at 21 years of age, it may be appropriate, but it's this big thing. Is age so important in the 30 kilometer? Certainly if they were racing over 50, I think it would be a major factor. But 30, as I keep saying, isn't really, in my books, the long distance, the marathon of skiing.
Here's another of the early pace setters, Elena Sinkovic now. 11,300 meters. Aldina says she's feeling better this morning.
Well, certainly the biggest hope the Swedes have in today's race, but I think realistically a top 10 would be a satisfying result.
Well, that's what she said her target was. She, as I said, she felt for the first time in the relay something like her old self. Until then, she just hadn't got a really good feeling in any of the races. Having said that, the Swedes didn't exactly have a great relay day, finishing down in 8th place. Now Danilova, slightly unknown quantity. What do you think she can do here?
I don't know. I think she'll be fatigued from the previous race program, and the cross-country program has increased since '88, where they just had 3 individual and a relay, and the very fact that they now have one more race makes their program a little bit tougher. But they've been kind. They start on the first days and they finish on the last day, so they've spread it out as opposed to squeezing it into the first 2 weeks, which used to be the case. So at their level of fitness, maybe they can cope, and a lot has to do with whether they've been hit by the virus that we've already mentioned.
59 seconds though given away already. That's quite a lot for her.
Well, if you look at previous results, the top 3 will be spread by maybe 3 minutes over the full 30 kilometers.
Yeah.
So although the time differences are so much bigger than we've seen in the shorter events, a minute isn't too, you know, it's a lot, but it's still top 5 if you can hold that sort of margin.
Belmondo not messing around at all. 8.7 seconds, and the race plan very clear that she's going to be up there leading. Interestingly, although it was a classic race last year at Trondheim, the race pattern unfolding in a similar way. Valbe and Belmondo.
Well, Belmondo losing time over the first 15 kilometers to Valbe, and it was 41 seconds down at that stage. She pulled it right back to 28. So having looked through the whole list, she was the only person to gain time on Valbe over the last 15 kilometers. I think we'll see her go for a charge again, despite the fact that she's already leading.
Well, Maria Turl's certainly gutsy, so I think that, as you said, Patrick, her strength after 20 kilometers, that's when we're going to be looking for her to really go. What she really needs to do is a bit of damage limitation here, isn't it? Not to leave herself too much to do.
Absolutely. I think by 15 kilometers, Maria's got to still be within that minute, 1 minute and 30 seconds, and then she can make a move. But if she loses more than 2 minutes, I think not only will the spirits drop, but she'll also realize that it's going to be impossible to get on the podium.
She's also motivated by the fact that Marcus Gandler was impertinent enough to become the first Austrian to get an Olympic medal when she wanted to be the first Austrian to get an Olympic medal. So now she's in a situation where she wants to actually go home on equal terms. I think she'd accept the bronze if she could do it. It's a tough call, but if there's an outsider that you should really respect, then she'd certainly be in that little list. Further on the trail, carrying Filippo. French, who haven't really made any headlines at all in cross-country. Not at these championships anyway.
Likewise in biathlon, their big aim for the biathlon was to take the women's relay, and really disappointing outside the top 5 in yesterday's race. And no real explanation as yet, other than the fact that they, like the Germans, have had problems with ski selection. But maybe just the training program was inappropriate in their preparation, the build-up, the last 2 weeks of build-up to the games.
Well, the race will certainly start to take a different complexion as we get to the halfway point. Just a chance to bring you up to the headlines in the local newspapers, as we do each day. It was Herman Marr, absolutely overjoyed yesterday to get a second gold medal. And I just break in there, Lasutina
coming in third place, 24 seconds the difference. So Lazzatino pretty much in touch at this stage, and just seeing her time difference, she was 7 seconds behind at 1.8, so she's lost a further 15, and watch her at the 15-kilometer stage.
Helen Nielsen only arrived just a couple of days before the relay was to take place. Not a woman who likes to be away from home too long, doesn't sleep well. But the Norwegians really did look second best to the Russians in the relay. They really didn't throw down a challenge. And 30 seconds behind Belmondo, that's not too bad. So Belmondo, Chepalova, Lasutina and Valbe all within half a minute of each other. Well, those Italian flags could well be waving longest and highest at the end of today. As we also mentioned for the men's competition with the sickness going through. It's incredible. The story this morning is that more than 1 million people have gone down with this virus. The most sad news, Patrick, is 16 kids have died as a result of complications arising from the flu. So it's serious, as you said. You know, if it goes through the media and the press, well, that's one thing. It's another thing if it affects the athletes and takes their chance away. But if you see, you might have seen some of the pictures with some of the Japanese who wear these face masks here, and it's not to protect you from the traffic fumes as you might think. It's in fact a custom here to keep yourself and your germs to yourself. Pretty uncomfortable, I have to say.
Well, I didn't notice you wearing yours, David, but it's a good idea. We were all laughing at it initially, thinking that it was purely because of the traffic and the pollution, but not the case. And no sport that they all do it wherever they are. And a little unfortunate that we've probably brought the virus with us.
Indeed. Coming up now, Natasha Lassen for Slovenia. And at the moment, not in the top 10, but figuring at 18th place. Taranenko. Taranenko's really taken over the pace of the race. Afransikova was quick early on, but Taranenko now really is the target. A lot of people will be taking splits off her.
Well, we thought Havranchikova was going to be the pace setter in the early days, but Taranenko has gone out with a vengeance, and really it's a question of how long she can survive. We were surprised in the Nordic combination events predicting the demise of one or two skiers, and I hesitate to do it again with Taranenko. But if of the top favourites, I think the leaders at the moment, Taranenko is the likeliest to weaken over the last 10 kilometres.
10 seconds, the advantage for Valbe. And just looking at that, Valbe compared at 7.3 kilometers. There was just a couple of seconds, so she's increased the advantage there. But it's a question of who's accelerating and who's decelerating. Chepalova, who had the biggest advantage over the field coming up to this point. 35 seconds her lead. Down to Belmondo now, 20 seconds, the difference between her and Chepalova and Belmondo. There it is, 35 seconds Chepalova at 11,300 meters, ahead of Valbe. Taranenko 46 off the pace. But it's not a complete picture as yet. Snowharp, the village just across the valley, haven't seen too much of that. And just one more race here. They've closed down the alpine slopes, packed up the ski stadium. And a lot of the people here are going to be pretty disappointed. They didn't really get involved in the Olympics when everybody arrived, the local people, but now they're feeling already signs of sadness that all the activity and attention that's been brought to what is basically a sleepy part of Japan is going to disappear.
Well, in one way, it's a good thing. The fact that the Paralympics comes after this, and we're going to see the, they'll be in action in the cross country, the alpine events certainly, and I think it's good that the enthusiasm is growing at this stage, because unlike Atlanta, where everyone had enough at the end of the 3 weeks, I think here they'll be able to put some energy into the Paralympics, which of course is so important.
Aldina just overtaking and coming up the slope.
Really, Sweden's demise over the last 10 years is as unimpressive as Norway's climb up through the ranks to dominate both Nordic and biathlon events, and quite difficult to explain. I don't know if you have any feeling as to why the Swedes have struggled over the last, certainly the last 3 Olympic Games. They haven't reaped the medals that they took, say, in Calgary and the World Championships around that time.
I think a couple of reasons, completely different reasons. One is the fact that there are so many opportunities in different sports for young people in Sweden to take up, and arguably many of them more commercially attractive. The second part is that we've had some rather bizarre weather in the last years, and you've got to go up north in Sweden, where you've got the smallest part of the population, where most of the population lives in the south. So most of the population have been attracted to these other sports, and I think it's a combination of factors. It's not any one thing. Albrecht, now this will be an interesting comparison here. 11,000, and she's a minute 17 off the pace behind Chapalova. Let's just have a look at the Valbe relationship between 7,300 meters. Valbe and Albrecht were separated by some 40 seconds, and Italy, Russia second and third, Ukraine are fourth ahead of Switzerland, but Belmondo still very much the woman to beat. And just here in this little slow motion we can get, well, if it had been a bit longer, we might have been able to have talked a little bit about why she is so special, particularly on the climbs. The cameras are pretty well spaced out here today. It's noticed in the biathlon the coverage has been pretty continuous.
Well, I think that the main feature with the biathlon is that they've concentrated on the range area. And it wasn't until the first of the relays yesterday that we got to get a look at the tracks and how severe they really are. And one of the features there, as is here in the Snow Harp Stadium, is that the downhills are so tough that you're not actually getting the rest that you need. And so instead of being like an interval session, it's all out work for the full 30 kilometers today.
Carozzi, who's, as you can see there, in 5th place. I think the Italians, they've got this really good feeling at the moment. They've managed to keep all the sickness away. Goodness knows how they've done it, but they seem to, just about 1 or 2 have gone down, but compared with some other teams, they've managed to stay and keep most of their people away from the problems. Turl, minute 22, so losing time, but it's a question of not losing too much in her case.
Well, she's still in 6th place, and we said a minute and a half was as much as she could afford to be behind at the 15-kilometer stage. From 11.3 down to 15 is a relatively easy part of the course. And I say relative, it's not easy by our standards, but for these athletes, it is the easiest section. So I don't expect Thurl to lose more than another 5 or 6 seconds between here and the 15-kilometer stage. Then she can take advantage of the fact that she's used to these longer distances. And, well, I'm hoping that we'll see her move up through the ranks and threaten the likes of Chapalova, Valbe, Belmondo.
So there, Lasutina now ahead of Valbe, but 35 seconds behind Belmondo, and she'd just taken a minute out of Trude Dubendal-Hartz there, who was starting a minute ahead of her. Marit Mikkelspass not looking particularly comfortable.
No, not flowing the certainly the upper body's starting to work harder than we'd normally expect, as opposed to staying on a nice gliding ski. But certainly the picture flattens the slope. It's a lot steeper than you'd be led to believe by the picture.
Well, the course designer's done a good job for the crowd here, because he's brought the racers back into the stadium, which is pretty necessary to get an enjoyment of this race. The Japanese crowd not so keen to get out on the trails. Nielsen, what can we make of her? This is clearly the best Norwegian effort at the moment.
Well, that's as we expected, but you can hear from her breathing that she's going into oxygen debt, and if she's doing that, that's dangerous at this stage of the race. Maybe this time around, next on the next loop, she'd be able to survive. But if you're doing that, there's a chance that you're building the lactate acid up in the muscles, and if you go over that stage, there's no recovery. So we'll watch out for Nielsen. I think that there's a risk that she won't be able to maintain this pace right the way through.
So through 11,300 meters, Belmondo it is from Chepalova, 8 seconds separating the first two, then Lasutina half a minute back, Valbe 7 off the pace behind Lasutina, and then Enel Nielsen for Norway. And Taranenko 54 seconds ahead of the first of the Italians, Paruzzi, with Maria Turl a minute 22 back, Brigitte Albrecht a minute 25. And just over half a minute off the pace at the moment, Mikkelsplass and Duvendale. Minute 36.7 separating the first 11. So we'll take a short break, and then we'll be back to see the leaders in and through the stadium.
Get all the action of the Winter Olympics on Eurosport with Samsung.
On the slopes of Mount Higashidate, one of the most exacting of alpine skiing disciplines. A combination of speed and precision. Go too fast and you risk losing control. Go too slow and you risk losing.
Alpine skiing, the women's giant slalom tonight, 2:45 and 5:15 UK, presented on Eurosport by
Samsung and Volvo. Share the spirit.
Welcome back to the Snow Harp Stadium, and as we come back, it's Julia Chepalova, one of the pace setters in this women's 30-kilometer freestyle, who comes into the stadium at the halfway stage. Wearing a bib number 28 on the left of those three, and as she comes through, you can also see Elena Valbe, who Chepalova is being closed down on now. Valbe right behind Chepalova. Chepalova, who's taken that minute out of Valbe. And as we see that order there with Taranenko also in contention, an opportunity to welcome into the commentary box Katarina Neumanova. Good morning, welcome, and first of all, congratulations on 2 great Olympic medals.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
Good morning. 5 and 10 kilometers, your success. It's given you a chance to obviously test out all of the trails here. Everybody says they're really hard, but you can tell us just how hard it is.
Yes, the courses here are extremely hard, especially for the long distance, because 5 kilometers and 10 kilometers, these competitions are always very tough. But here, 15 kilometers and 30 are on the same courses, so that's why they are very, very tough, and the climbings are very long, and downhill is, all the downhills are steep and very fast.
Now, you've had a chance to see the first part of this race, how it's going. What are your thoughts? Does it still look like a race for Belmondo?
Yes, I think that Steffi have great motivation for today because she have got no individual medal from this Olympic Games, and I think she will win.
What makes her so special?
Steffi is great in skating. She's very good, and today the conditions are very hard. The snow is soft and not very fast, and I think that's good for her.
Well, as you can see, she's coming up to challenge Julia Chepalova for that leading time at the halfway stage. Couple of interesting things. Out on the courses, they're so hard, very long climbs, very quick downhills. Everyone said it's really difficult to find somewhere to get a drink.
Yes, that's true, because there are only two or three places where it's possible to make some refreshment, and it's difficult.
So have you changed? Did you, when you were racing, particularly the 10 kilometers, did you change? How did you find a place to?
No, we have got no refreshment during 10 kilometers, only on the long distance, so only 30 kilometers.
Would matter for you. You
yes.
wouldn't need to take anything off for the 10. So Belmondo it is coming into the stadium. You can see that she's chasing the time of Chepalova, and a 14-second advantage as she crosses the line to go out onto the second loop. So Belmondo from Chepalova, Valbe in third place. Now, you know Jelena Valbe. Last race, she said this is the last chance to get that individual gold medal. Just how much can she do here?
I think that now she have got no chance for a gold medal. She have got a good chance for a medal because if she will make a couple with Chepalova, Chepalova can help her, but probably no gold medal.
Do you have any idea what's gone from her?
Probably she had some problems during the summer, during the preparing for this winter, and after Russian National Championship she was sick, and it's not good, and it's very difficult to make a good preparing for the big races after it.
The halfway positions on your screen. Let's look forward a little bit. You've had a terrific time here. Silver. Must have been absolutely delighted on the 5 kilometer. Just tell us a little bit about that race.
Yes, it was a very hard race for me because I don't like the conditions before. I didn't like it. It was very special snow conditions, and I didn't believe in a good result. But we had a good skis, good waxing, and probably I had a good chip. So I am very happy with my silver medal. And
then an amazing fight on the 10 kilometers to grab the bronze.
Yes, I was feeling very well 7 or 8 kilometers, but at the end I was very tired, and I was happy that I saved the bronze medal. It was very nervous.
Looking forward, we know that Valbe will retire at the end of the season. Nagano will also probably retire. Belmondo may start the family. So a lot of your opposition may disappear. There'll still be the likes of Chepalova to take on, but looking forward to, say, Ramsau, the World Championships next year. You must feel very confident with what you've done here and what you think you can do in the future.
Yes, I think so. I have a good chance in the future, but there are very good young girls, as you said, Chepalova, Šmigun, and so on. Bente Martinsen, she's 1 year older, but I think that good for me is it that I can all the styles, classic and skating, very good. And
are we ever going to see you racing 30 kilometers? Now you've chosen not to. What? Just tell us quickly, why did you decide not to race today?
I am feeling very tired, and I think that today I am not so strong on long distance, and the conditions are not good for me, so that's why I made a rest.
Yeah, Katarina, I'd be interested to ask you whether you feel that the 30 kilometers is really a test of endurance, or whether it should be a little bit longer now. Most of the women skiers are so strong that I don't feel there's enough difference between the 15 and the 30. Maybe you should be racing 40 kilometers and then sorting out the endurance athletes.
Yes, the girls are using almost the same speed like for 15 kilometers. It's unbelievable, and I don't know.
I just feel that we see the likes of Lazatina and Danilova who could almost win all the races. We've seen Velba win all the races, and if you're going to have a mix of races in championships, you should have some for the sprinters and some for the long distance racers.
The Russian team is training very, very hard. I think they are the strongest team, and for them it's no problem to win 5 kilometers or 30 kilometers. It's a problem for me, but not for them.
Right.
Just give you a little update as we go through the stadium here at the half distance. Belmondo it is by 14 from Chepalova. Lasutina also for Russia in third, bronze medal position. Nielsen for Norway, the best for her country, and minute and 9 off the pace, but she's ahead of Valbe, who's a minute and 14 back, and Taranenko, as you can see, almost a minute and a half to make up. But Maria Turl, a minute 45 off the pace. It's not too damaging before we see Peruzzi, Albrecht for Switzerland, and then Danilova, 2 gold medals here. She's not unhappy, I don't think, whatever happens today.
So our first look at Belmondo in slow motion, and she's dominating the race at the moment. And Katarina, can you talk us through her technique? We know she's very strong in the heart and lungs, but does she have a slightly different technique from the others as far as the skating goes?
Yeah, she's very light, and she's using a very high frequency. Yes, and she's probably training a lot in this style. I don't know why she's so fast.
And so the soft conditions suit her simply because I think she only weighs something like 48 kilograms, and that would be an advantage in these conditions.
Yes, sure, because the snow is rather soft, and it's good for Steffi.
And likewise, can you explain, is there any reason why the Norwegians, who are so strong in the classic event, why they struggle with the skating? Is it the training they do, or is it their physique that is different?
Yes, I think that Marit Mikkosplasm and the other Trude de Bendal, they are they are one of the oldest, and when they were young, they started only with classic. And probably they are training more in classic.
So the order stays the same. I think we've got to come to the most important, well, I'll come to that in a minute. Let's just talk about, it must have been startling for your teammate who was on the last leg, was Kotsumova, when Belmondo came flying past her and flying past Leonardi, and also flying past Anke Schultz to get the bronze medal. I mean, that was a measure of the good form Belmondo's in.
Yes, it was very hard for Zuzana Kotsumova, but I think the Czech team made a two big mistakes on the first leg, and of course I crashed during my competitions, so it was the problem of our relay.
I don't mean to take you've had lots of happy points, so I just want to ask you the sad points as well. But we've seen the downhills. We only actually caught the picture when you were getting up. I mean, just how difficult are these downhills?
I think that I'm good downhill, but I was just behind Taranenko, and I had a little bit faster ski, and I wanted to pass her, and I made some mistake. I don't know what kind of mistake.
But again, just looking at your Czech team, quite a good future, perhaps.
Yes, I think that we have got almost the youngest team. I'm the oldest of them, and the other girls are juniors or 22 years old. So I think we have good chance next year and maybe next Olympic Games.
Well, you're not that old, because we know you celebrated your birthday here, 25 years old. Brilliant. Two medals and a birthday. Can't ask for better than that.
Yeah.
Well, I think we're going to have to let you go in a minute, Katarina, because I know that you've got an important date downtown. I mentioned the most important thing of the day, and that's the hockey match. So come on, tell us what's going to happen. It's Canada, the Czech Republic for a place in the final.
Yes.
So, going to support the Czechs, are you?
I hope we will win and we will be in the final.
Yeah. Well, that's the big match down at Big Hat. Kicks off, or I should say faces off, to get the terminology right, just after the Nordic combined relay. Paul Ferguson and Richard Beaupre will look for your company, and I can tell you we will be trying to hitch a lift with the Emperor's car to get out of here to get down and look at that match. So the order at the moment: Belmondo, Chepalova, Lasutina and Nielsen, the top four, separated by a minute and 10 seconds. And we've just got the message of 1 or 2 or 3 who've dropped out, but no one in the major players who've failed to finish. Katarina, from Patrick and myself, once again, many congratulations on the Olympic medals. Thanks for coming by, and enjoy the hockey this afternoon.
Thank you very much.
So thanks once again to Katarina Neumanova. And now with myself, David Goldstrom, and Patrick Winterden, we'll focus on the second part of this race to see who's going to win this final gold medal. It's Belmondo looking extremely good at the moment. And Kotsumova, the baby of the Czech team, coming up the climb, not into the stadium yet. This will be just about her first major test at 30 kilometers. In fact, first ever 33. Well, what you don't know doesn't put you in fear. It's only when you've done it once, Patrick, that you then wonder whether you should ever do it again.
Well, I'm not so sure that's true. I think there's an air of fear about these longer distance races, and certainly the nerves are greatest on the start line of a 30k than any other race. And having a look at Belmondo's time, I think one of the key factors now is that Belmondo has actually started behind Chepalova, and she has a cushion of 14-15 seconds, and the Italians have huge support. They've got a big squad of waxing technicians. None of them are in the waxing hut now. They're all out on the course. They're nicely spread around the course, and will be giving Belmondo as much information as she needs, and so she can now control the race. She's got a 15-second cushion. That may be 100 meters, and anyone involved in endurance sport will know 100 meters takes a lot of bringing back, and so I think Belmondo's a very clever race indeed. She hasn't gone too fast, but she's got that cushion.
Belmondo, of course, is an Olympic gold medalist. I mean, she won the title in 1992 in Les Saisies, those tracks that were at altitude, and really it was a commanding victory on that day. I mean, she took it away from Igorova, beat her by no less than 22 seconds. Igorova disgraced after Trondheim, but nonetheless she also beat Jelena Valbe, and she was the best part of 2 minutes ahead of Valbe.
Well, I think one of the other things about this competition, we had the 2 classic races early on, the 15 for the women and then the 5 kilometer, and they were both run in very difficult conditions, so we didn't really get an indication of the skiers' form. The waxing played maybe 50% of the results. Certainly the Norwegians were written out of the classic races by bad choice. The relay really was one of the first indications, and certainly we saw Belmondo coming good on that event, and so your money still would be well placed on her at this stage of the race.
And that's Elena Sinkovic, who's dispensed with the hat, and she's being closed down on by Kathi Wilhelm of Germany. There was a minute between the two when they started, but no longer. Also worth mentioning, another major day in Belmondo's career came in 1993 in Falun at the World Championships, when she won the 30 kilometers freestyle. So she's really proven over this distance and this particular technique. That day she actually took the gold away from her own teammate Manuela Di Centa, and the margin of victory then 13 seconds, with Igorova back in third. Lasutina on that day was 2:45 off the pace.
Yeah, I think Katerina, it was interesting when she said that the tougher the course, the more it suits Belmondo. I think we've come to realize that over the years. But it's a question of, she doesn't have the power. At 48 kilograms, there's not a lot of muscle there, but she's a real worker. And if the conditions are too fast, she doesn't have the technique or the power to win. But in these sort of courses with slightly softer snow, it favors her style.
So just moving ahead now to the 22-kilometer point, and there, just very briefly on your screen, so I'll tell you it's Sinkovic from Wilhelm. Sinkovic having quite a good run at the moment. 26 years of age from Minsk. And yet to get a major medal. Still, it's that sort of overcast day, but the news is probably pretty good to the servicemen, that everything's rather stable. In fact, it hasn't really changed, hasn't really warmed up that much. As that's an interesting sign. Now, we've not seen that. Now, there was a threat of rain, certainly looking out of the commentary boxes now. There are some hoods going on and umbrellas going up, and that's Manuela Henkel falling in the soft snow. And as I just said, the weather was stable. It changed. Now Henkel hopefully is all right. I mean, you see this on the downhill and you see this in the Alpine, and you expect people to get hurt. You never think about the fact that somebody on a ski half the size, half the length, can actually tumble down in that way.
Well, I think there are two things. Firstly, in the last 3 or 4 years, I can only remember seeing 1 or 2 falls. But at these games, I saw 4 yesterday in the biathlon, all at critical stages. There are 2 things you have to appreciate. Firstly, the speed they go, up to 80 kilometers an hour, and the ski is only 4 centimeters wide, attached just by the thinnest of bindings at the front of the toe. So the picture deceives us, and it really is a very testing downhill indeed.
And news, Karen Morida of Italy has pulled out of the race. She, of course, ran the first leg of the relay for the Italians, so whatever happens in her first Olympics, she's going home with a bronze medal. So it won't all be bad news for her. The rain actually here, Patrick, I mean, it does really remind me that I've never been to any major competition in winter sports where the weather has changed quite as quickly or quite as often as we've had here in Nagano. We've had sun, snow, rain, mist, fog, and it's all happened in the space of, an hour, 2 hours.
Doesn't it remind you of the United Kingdom?
Well, I think it's even a bit more extreme than the United Kingdom. It might be in your part of the world, up in Scotland. I mean, it might be, the regular daily dish that comes up there, but certainly me down in the south, no, it doesn't happen in London like that. But it is extraordinary, the climatic changes here.
Absolutely, so fast. And 1 minute you've got sunshine, and the next minute a race is being cancelled because you can't see the targets at the end of the range in the biathlon. And that's certainly been a feature. With this race, the most important thing now is that the moisture in the snow is going to increase almost instantly that it starts raining. Now, which of the teams decided to go on wet snow skis? That may be a change, and maybe that is Velba's only chance if Belmondo has gone for the dry snow option without the rills, the grooves that they put in the ski to stop the ski sticking to the wet snow.
So we're about to find that out here in this second part. The leaders still to get to the 22.3 kilometer point. But here is Chepelova coming up now. She's wearing 28. She's in the middle of this little trio. In front of her there, that's Natasha Leonardi for Switzerland. And right behind, that's Monica Lazarut for Romania. But Chepelova driving hard. Remember, she still hasn't got a medal, and this is probably a huge motivation for her. This is her first Olympic Games. She didn't start in the 15 Classic. She was 13th and 8th in the 5 and the 10K, but she was taken out of the relay and her place given to Valbe. So Chepelova, Junior World Championship honours, first World Cup victory this season. Here at the Olympics, last opportunity, all the motivation in the world to try and strive for the podium.
Well, she's certainly got a point to prove, and what we've noticed since she came out of the stadium at 15 kilometers is she's dropped Elena Velber. A good move. Bad news obviously for Velber, because that was really her main medal chance, and now Lazatina is likely to move into the 3rd place. But the other thing about 22.3, it's the last of the big hills. It's all relatively easy from here. All the hard work has been done, and there won't be so many changes in the order once the athletes have been through 23.5.
Here's Valbe, that famous pink hat that has helped her be known around the Nordic world. Pick her up across any stadium with that famous hat. But the news, I'm afraid, isn't too encouraging. As you said, she's a minute 40 behind Chepelova, and that's a long way back. And unless Chepelova starts to hit a wall, which, as you were suggesting, is not likely to happen now, she's done the worst of the climbs, then Valbe, even struggling for a bronze medal.
Well, she's lost 40 seconds since she came out of the stadium for the 15-kilometer stage. So that's 40 seconds over the last 7 kilometers, twice the rate that she was losing it before.
Shevchenko at the 15-kilometer point, try and pick her up. She was down in 13th place, 2:37 off the pace behind Belmondo, behind Chepelova. Just get a check on it. She was just about 2:23 behind Chepelova. So we'll get an idea. She wasn't our idea of the best Ukrainian. That remains to be Taranenko. Taranenko at the moment in 6th-ish position. And wouldn't it be horrible if she ends up in 4th place again? And if you go back to 22.3 kilometers, Taranenko's gone through in 3rd spot at the moment. And Shevchenko 4 minutes 27, so she's really losing time. Now Belmondo at 15 kilometers was leading Chepelova by 14 seconds.
This is really the critical mark, and if Belmondo can increase that 14 seconds, then I think she'll be safe. But we've already seen that Chepelova has put a charge on. She's taken a full 40 seconds out of Velber, and there's every chance that she may have gained something back on Belmondo. I think she knew it was her last chance, and she needed to be ahead at this stage. But Belmondo had that 15-second cushion. Has she been able to take advantage of it and pace herself through to the end?
Well, so this could be some fine fight here between Chepelova and Belmondo. At the moment, nobody really getting into it. Lazatina is worth keeping an eye on, certainly. 6.8 seconds. Ooh, Chepelova has really dug in there and said, I'm not having any of this. You are not going to walk away from this, Stefania.
Well, it doesn't take a mathematician to work out that at that rate, those two are going to enter the stadium at exactly the same time. Do you favour the girl in front who is making the ground at the moment, or does Belmondo have the advantage coming from behind and with the advantage of knowing exactly what she's got to achieve?
Well, at the moment, Chepelova is a bit of a revelation here. We know that she can handle skating better than most of the youngsters of her era, with all that junior success, and now she's really showing why she should be in the Russian team. They have such depth, but she's had to fight her way through a lot of rather senior team members who she probably has thought have held on for too long, and I think that is the point. I think she's got the absolute motivation here to prove a point.
That's a very important factor, actually. We've got the Italian team, and we've got your De Centas and Belmondos, Peruzzi. They all know from the outset of the season that they are going to be in the Olympic squad. There's no doubt about it. They don't have the competition, so they can then focus on the event. The Russians, on the other hand, have 10, 11, 12 athletes who could all fill those 4 spaces. So someone like Chepelova has to concentrate on 2 stages of the season. Firstly, getting qualification. And then once she's achieved that, she has to try and build herself up for a second peak. And she's done a remarkable job, because it's not an easy task.
32, Peruzzi. At the moment, she's been the best of the Italians for much of the race. And in 8th place with 1:45, but you can see that's now stretched out. Another 30 seconds gone. In fact, the best part of a minute gone. Lasutina now. Lasutina at 15 kilometers. She was 47 seconds behind Belmondo and 33 behind Chepelova. And they're really driving on. I mean, I think the motivation is that Lasutina should get the full set of medals at worst here. She hasn't got a bronze, that would complete it. But Lasutina and she'll be ahead of Valve, that's for sure, because she's only got to get up this last little hump before she gets to the red line. So 47 seconds she was off the pace, and she's 1:03 now behind Belmondo, but she's 44 clear of Valve. So Lasutina at the moment reasonably comfortable in 3rd bronze medal position. Valve and Taranenko in 5th place. Then Maria Turl in 6th, so she's 2.5 off, which means that she'd have to find 90 seconds in 7,000 meters if she wanted to get into the bronze medal position. That's a tough call.
Well, if it was 7.5 kilometers uphill, it might be possible. But because at least 2/3 of the course from that 22.3 kilometer stage is downhill, I think that's a task only the likes of Harvold Hannevold have managed to achieve feats like that in these games.
Marit Mikkelsplas and Ellen Nielsen. Ellen Nielsen, just go back to 15 kilometers. Nielsen had sort of disappeared out of the first 10. She was showing up earlier on, but Nielsen trying to check where on earth she was at 15 kilometers at the moment. We've momentarily lost her. Oh yes, we found her. Sorry, my apologies, Ellen. 4th place. And she was 1:09. She was actually splitting Lasutina and Valve, which is at the moment exactly the same situation. She was 23 seconds behind Lasutina and just 4 ahead of Valve. And now the situation is that she's just behind Valve by a couple of seconds, as you saw for yourselves there. But the bad news for her is that she's 46 behind Lasutina. So, question here is, Patrick, Lasutina, will she last out? Will Valve just find something to get her back on the podium? She's not going to win the gold. She's got to find 44 seconds. Strange things can happen.
Well, strange things can, and they have happened in the last 14 days, but the cushion is too big either side. Lasutina will know where she is, and I think what we'll find is she'll relax her style, and she may well find that she picks up speed in doing so. Velba's got too much to do, provided that Lasutina stays on her feet, and that is a feature. It's not an impossibility. I think that Lasutina is going to win the battle there. Really, the big question is Belmondo slowing because the skis have gone, or is she slowing because she's run out of energy and gone a little bit too fast? The fight...
So here is Chepalova, 26.3 kilometers, so 3,700 meters. When she comes around into our view, you can't see her, but we can. And here she comes. We're lucky enough to be here in Nagano for these games. And the course is very cleverly designed. A lot of it weaves around the woods, brings it back to the spectators. And she still looks to have good rhythm. Interestingly, the other thing I noted while we were talking, Patrick, we caught a sight of Christina Smigun, and she was definitely poling with one arm. She was really not using that left side at all. Well, I can't understand why on earth she's actually doing this race. It's far too quick.
Well, it's too early to expect great things from her. Maybe she just wants a taste of the Olympics, and who wouldn't? And the experience may well pay off in 4 years' time. But you mentioned she had an operation early February. I find that impossible to believe that she's back on the course. 6 weeks would be the natural time that you'd hold the arm in a sling, let alone be out skiing again. So very surprised to see her here, and but I don't think we're going to see any great shakes from her.
No, she's many minutes behind, but as you say, time will tell. I would just be concerned that it would delay the recovery, however much her appetite was to race here. But the Estonians have got an improving squad, both men and women. I think in 4 years' time they could well be a force. Now here's Valbe right amongst these little gaggle of racers. And I think everybody here would love to see her get something out of this. She's got another bronze from the relay, or sorry, a gold from the relay. But that's, you know, it's not, as she said, it's not really the special individual medal that she craves. Amazing career. 5 World Cup victories, a season-long competition. The absolute queen of Trondheim, winning all 5 gold medals, 4 individual, and of course the relay gold last year.
I think one thing you can see on her technique, we've already mentioned it, that she hasn't really developed the technique like other athletes, but she's so bent over at the hips that she's relying purely on that upper body. It's not surprising that the legs are a little tired at this stage, but if you watch the younger skiers, they're much more fluent. They push the hip forward and they get an extra maybe 6 or 12 inches of glide on each stride. Over 30 kilometers, that makes a big difference.
Belmondo and Chepalova. Belmondo still to come round the corner now. And remember, the last time we had was 22.3. There was only 6.8 seconds between the two. Just going back. Just have a look at this here. Chepalova and Belmondo. I think the gap has closed a little bit even more now. Could be down to just 3 or 4 seconds. Still got a ways to go. We have 1 or 2 extra checks here. Belmondo, though, she is a fighter.
Well, she's very gutsy indeed, but if as we suspect, the skis aren't running quite so well now that the rain has started, she's in trouble, and there's really nothing she can do. She's lost that extra 4 seconds on the downhill, which is very unusual. So I think that's quite a likely explanation. Because she, as we pointed out earlier, she paced herself well over the first 7 kilometers.
Well, we said it was down to 4 seconds, but in fact, it's nothing at all. Look at this. Just coming up to the line, they're almost going to be together, but Chepalova has the advantage. Belmondo drops back to 2nd place. Valbe, that's correct, goes to 3rd, but waiting for Lasutino, who will play a part in this, hasn't reached this point at the moment. So that's a 10-second, 12-second turnaround in the space of, what, 4 kilometers?
Absolutely. From the 22.3 kilometer stage through to 26.3. And we've pointed it out a number of times, but it is nearly all downhill.
Well, this is what you were talking about, this different technique.
You can see in between each stride, she stands nice and tall, and she's managing to get the hips forward.
And just some update news, you may have remember seeing the young German Manuela Henkel had that tumble. Well, we fear that she might have broken a bone, broken a leg. Hopefully it's not as bad as that, but she's on the way to the medical facility to be looked after. As you can imagine, here at the Olympic Games, the medical facilities are indeed state-of-the-art. But already we've got a finisher coming in. And Elena Sinkovic to really set the target. She's overtaken the 6 women who started before her. And 1:27.15 is now the first realistic target. And she was down in 12th place, 3:55 behind Belmondo at 22.3 kilometers. Not bad. Peruzzi, well, she was also in the top 10, only just 2 minutes 54 behind the likes of Belmondo and Cepolova. Still the number 1 Italian, of course, is Belmondo. And Ordina in the white and orange for Sweden. She's been well passed by Peruzzi.
Yeah, once again, the Italians are running well, but if Belmondo's skis are having problems, there's every chance that Peruzzi is as well. So we may see her moving out of the top 10, but the very fact that the 2 or 3 athletes in front of her are within reach may well give her that extra drive over the last 4 kilometers.
Right, Lasutina now. Lasutina to Valbe, well, it was 44 seconds. And just having a look at seeing where we might be. Valbe looks like a minute now, doesn't it? It's stretching out the gap, and Lasutina's in charge. So it looks as if Lasutina at the moment might get that bronze medal, which would give her all 3 here. Gold, 3 of them.
But she hasn't made any impression whatsoever on Belmondo. Belmondo losing a bit to Cepolova, but Lasutina has stayed exactly the same margin over the last 4 kilometers or so.
Yes, just to get the medal tally right, Lasutina with 3 golds, the 5, the 10 and the relay. The silver, of course, coming in the 15 Classic, and a bronze here in the 30, so that'll be the complete collection. And they're pretty nice medals, actually. I don't know, have you been down and had a look at them? They're actually quite nicely designed.
I haven't had the pleasure yet, but intend to go to one of the host houses this evening in the city of Nagano, where you can go along and meet the winning athletes and have a beer or 2 at the same time. But great atmosphere down there, and it's nice to see all the athletes coming in from the satellite stations such as Hakuba and Nozawa Onsen, just to mix with the officials and the media.
This has been a hard race for Marit. I don't think she's been comfortable right from the word go. She never looked particularly comfortable, even at 11,000 meters. She was not fluent, and she really is having a tough time out there. Still can't quite understand why Anita Mohn-Guidon, in the form that she's in, decided to go home. I know that she went home to see her daughter, but her daughter Carolina was with the grandparents. As far as we know, Carolina was happy, and I think Anita might have had a reasonable race here had she stuck with it, given that she was in good health and in good form.
I'm sure you're right on that count, but I think she knows she's already had 2 good races here. She's already won as many World Cup points as she's going to get. She's not going to get a medal in this race. I think that was unlikely. I mean, a top 10 is very respectable, and her concentration now is on the remainder of the World Cup circuit.
Ellen Nielsen, though, is the best Norwegian, as we predicted, into 4th place now, Ellen Nielsen. But the problem for her is that she's got almost a minute, some 56 seconds deficit to her and Lasutina. And as she gets to the top of this climb, really from here it is all down, and she's not going to make that back. So it's another athlete, I'm afraid, who's going to be disappointed in finishing in 4th place. Take you up to the finish at the moment. Sinkovic is home, still ahead at the moment from Wilhelm and Confortola. Havranchikova in 5th place, but she's had a disappointing run. Chapelova, though, now coming into the stadium complex. And is this going to be the Olympic champion over the 30 kilometers freestyle? We are, of course, going to have to wait for Belmondo to find whether she can turn around the deficit that she had. Remember, the deficit that Belmondo had at just going back to 26 kilometers was 4 seconds she was behind. 6 seconds she was behind. But here comes Chapelova. Whatever happens, she's going to become an Olympic medalist for the first time in her career, and I think she's made a point here. She has made a point that maybe she could have gone in the relay just as well as Valbe.
Absolutely, but it may well be that she's benefited from not being in the relay, slightly fresher than the other athletes. Belmondo, an enormous effort in the relay, and
is it going to pay? That's a super time, 1:22.01 over these trails in these conditions. 1:22.01 compares with 1:25.41 in Lillehammer, but that was classic, so you can't really make the comparison. So 1:23.04, that was classic also in Trondheim. But Chapelova it is who leads, waiting for Belmondo now. The last time, I suppose we can go back to Thunder Bay, that was Valbe winning in 1:16. Just have a look at Falun, and when Belmondo won 1:22.41 in Falun in 93. Well, Valbe plugging on here. She was down in 5th place, 2:18 off the pace behind Nielsen, so it's not going to be a finish with a flourish for her Olympic career. To be honest, when she got sick in Ramsau and was not racing in the World Cup, I think the writing was on the wall then, and she's never really looked back to the sort of Valbe that we've seen over so many seasons. That's disappointing, because you always want an athlete to go out, if they can, on the top. And as she said herself, when she beat Nielsen in the relay, she had to use a lot of power. You know, Nielsen, good run as we can see here, but not in the same level as Chapelova, Belmondo and Lasutina. So a little spirited sprint in between Taranenko there on the left of your picture. You can just see Valbe just showing that she's got a little style here, a little class. Who's going to get it? Private race, and Valbe, just the ski tips perhaps? Yes, I think so. Valbe over Taranenko. A little bit of private fun there.
But every second will count. You never know in these races, despite the fact that it's the long one. The slimmest of margins makes a difference. 0.2 of a second in the relay. Who knows? It may be a place.
Here's Belmondo. So let's have a look up here and just check. What do we think? She was 6.8 seconds behind. 29 kilometers, just looking at 15 seconds. It looks to us as if Chapelova has got this sewn up. Maybe the skis, maybe she's run out of gas, maybe it was too much in the relay, who knows? But this looks like a Russian medal. And that means Danilova in the 15, Lasutina in the 5 and the 10, the Russians in the relay, and it looks to me as if it's a clean sweep here at the 18th Olympiad in the women's cross-country events for the Russian squad, because Belmondo, even though she's charging down this 200-meter straight, I'm afraid she's just going to miss out here. Halfway down to go now, but Belmondo still with 40 meters to go, now chasing the silver medal, which she will get comfortably, but it's not the color she was striving for. Chapelova started fast, stayed fast, and actually sped up, or maintained her speed is probably correct, Patrick, whereas Belmondo went backwards.
Well, we thought Belmondo started fairly sensibly and had lost a little bit of time initially, but she's failed to come back like she did in Trondheim, but it was a classic race, as you mentioned, and desperately disappointed. 10 seconds over the time of 1 hour 22 minutes seems the slimmest of margins.
We need to keep our eye out now for Lasutina and see what situation happens there. Lasutina, who by our reckoning is pretty safe in bronze medal position. 23 just finishing there, Shevchenko of the Ukraine. But, currently leaders in the clubhouse, as they say, at the finish. Chepalova from Belmondo, Valbez in bronze medal position. Here comes Brigitte Albrecht of Switzerland. Had a good series of races here, Brigitte. And 31st, bib 31, and Albrecht at the moment into 4th place. So still waiting for Lasutina now.
Interesting to see Maria Thurl of Austria coming through, 22:53 behind the leaders at 29 kilometers, but only 3 seconds behind Velber. So a chance that Maria Thurl of Austria will take a very big scalp indeed. A medal is unlikely, she's too far behind for that, but certainly if she can pick pace up over the last kilometer, she can beat Velber into that 4th position.
Lasutina coming in to depose Valbe of her podium position. And she's very relaxed. She knows that there's no one behind her really who's threatening her, so she can ski this in pretty comfortably. And Chepalova, well, we've said that she's the rising star, and now she has risen to the top. Danilova breaking through, and Chepalova. So into bronze goes Larissa Lasutina, and there's no little smile there. This was a hard race. Well, there is Maria Thurl in 5th spot, and you get an Olympic certificate for winning that. But remember, 2:52, that's not bad.
Just 1 second behind Velber after all that. She closed the gap by another 2.5 seconds, but not quite enough. But the top 6 go into the history books. She'll be happy with that.
Best Austrian performance by a woman ever in the Olympic Games. Now, that's not a bad performance. I'm not quite sure whether the same might apply to Brigitte Albrecht. We might have to go scrambling through to find that. 3:13 off the pace. That's a very good run. Brigitte, who was 10th in the 5 and the 10, now coming up with a 6th place here ahead of Taranenko. That is worth mentioning.
Yeah, it's certainly nice to see the likes of Austria and Switzerland coming up to the fore. I'm not sure how healthy this Russian domination is as far as the sport's concerned. Very impressive, but it's long overdue that we see someone else threatening. The Italians have made a good effort.
And here comes Ellen Nielsen. She's going to change the order just a little bit here, because she's likely to go into 4th place. You see there 1:23, but she's only got 200 meters to go down the straight, so she's going to push Valbe down, and she's going into the 4th spot. She'll be the top Norwegian. Valbe will drop to 5th. Thurl to 6th, which remains the best Austrian Olympic performance by a woman. Mikkelsplas stuck to her guns, stuck to her work there. But Nielsen, well, I suppose you could say that they did exactly the right thing. She is the leading skater, and she's proved it. But anyone who finishes 4th feels miserable.
But it's not as if it's a close margin. She's over 1 minute and 10 seconds behind Lasutina.
And there is, well, the back of Chepalova. Chepalova, 21-year-old Muscovite. And that's the first good close-up we've seen of her since she started. So there we go, the gold to Chepalova. These, of course, are unofficial positions. There are still some to come home. Chipolova becomes Olympic champion at the age of 21, ahead of Belmondo, who takes a silver medal to go with the gold that she won in the Olympics of 92 over this distance and in this style, and the bronze to Lasutina, with Nilsson of Norway in the unfortunate fourth place spot, ahead of Valbe, who finishes her Olympic career fifth, just ahead of Maria Törl of Austria, Brigitte Albrecht of Switzerland, Taranenko the best for Ukraine, and then Mikkelsplass of Norway, Peruzzi completing the top 10. But this is the young woman whose picture will be on the front pages in the morning. Well, it's taken a while, but certainly I think this is a young woman you're going to see a lot more of. I think it's going to give her great confidence when we go back to World Cup racing for the final month of the season, and I think next year in the World Championship she's going to play a major part, subject of course to being fit and well.
I think it's really nice to see someone who's done really well at the junior level to graduate, come up to the senior level, and also show that they can match them. At 21, I'm amazed she had the strength to do it today. A very impressive run indeed.
3 times junior world champion, then racing over sort of 15 kilometers, emphasizing your point that, you know, her experience at this sort of distance is infinitesimal. But a new face on the map for the Russians, which when I was talking with you to Katerina Neumanova, I was suggesting that life might get easier with the departure of Valbe. It might just have got a lot more difficult here.
Well, she also mentioned the name of Kristina Smygen, and we're likely to see her back at the top when she recovers from her injury, and maybe the battle is going to be between Smygen and Shepelova. Who knows for next season's glories.
I think Neumanova, though, is she's a strong and powerful athlete, and I think the confidence she will have got here should stand her in good stead. But she needs it, and the other thing is now that she's put mountain biking aside and she's really focusing on the skiing, and will go into a solid summer's preparation, just working towards those Ramsau World Championships. I think that'll be good. She'll have also tremendous support there, because one thing I didn't mention when we were chatting to her, she's got this huge fan club who apparently demolished some 121 bottles of champagne. They all started phoning each other and drove 140 kilometers down to a local restaurant at about, goodness knows, I don't know, 3, 4 in the morning to have a party to celebrate Katerina's success. So that's always a good thing, to have a bit of a fan club here. Puts a little pressure on you in a sense that you want to do well, but on the other hand, it cheers you up as well to have some home feeling with you.
Yeah, it certainly helps, and if you have followers, you get sponsors with it, and you know, the financial part, although it's regrettable that it plays a role, it certainly does, and it's affected many of the teams. Many of the smaller teams struggle to support the athletes and keep them on snow in the summer. You really do nowadays have to compete and certainly train on the glaciers, and it all takes money.
Bukvayova in picture now. She's not very comfortable at skating. Her forte really is classic style, and she had a very good place, the 10th place that she occupied on her 15 Classic. I thought that was a decent effort from her. Certainly her best Olympic performance here at these games. You can see there 44, she's wearing 21 behind her Sarah Renner of Canada, who started, what, some 10 minutes ahead of her. So that's the measure of difference in standard here, particularly between the Europeans and the North Americans. The North Americans, I'm afraid, they're just struggling. The Americans and the Canadians, it's very sad, but they're just not at the races.
A number of things that I think they have problems with. Firstly, the race circuit isn't as intensive as it is here, and we've always said success breeds success, but they haven't got any to breed any. And I think once they can produce someone at the top, then people will take the sport up. But in Europe, there are so many top-class skiers for the other countries to benefit from, and they don't have that advantage.
Well, a chance for us to perhaps just reflect the women's cross-country races here. Undoubtedly, the star, because she's taken a medal in every competition, has to be Larisa Lasutina. She's 32, lives in Moscow, coached by her husband Gennady. She trains alone, trains sometimes with the Russian men's team, but as she says herself, she could be a bit of an awkward customer. She couldn't get on with Grushin, the head coach. They get on okay personally, but not in terms of training, and doing it her way has really paid off. She didn't have a great Tron time, and as a result of that, having had a great Thunder Bay World Championships in '95, she's come back to doing it her way for these Olympics here in '98, and she, with a medal out of every one of the competitions, is numerically the star. Danilova, well, gold medal in the 15, and then a very good silver coming from off the pace, playing a waiting game with a good sprint finish behind Lasutina, a relay gold with that, and Danilova certainly a very good member of the team for the season to come, and now Chepalova putting her name on the map, so there's no diminution in strength really.
Their success will go certainly run until 2002. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
Well, you can't see with Christina's left shoulder there, but that's the problem for her. She and her sister Katrin, who've been great stars. She's finished 12 minutes 16 seconds. I don't think she's, as they say, put the pedal to the metal. She hasn't killed herself. She's done this, I think, as you suggested, Patrick, to get the experience, to get the taste of an Olympic 30 kilometers, to know what it's like. Because at Salt Lake City it won't be easy, because a lot of the races there are going to be at altitude, very similar to Les Saisies. It's perhaps going to be the highest cross-country races we've ever had. Larissa Lasutina, the smile's back, she's recovered. Oh, look at that, happiness and sadness. Belmondo really looks sad. So often she smiles, but you can tell how much that hurts to be in silver medal by just 10 seconds.
Do you think she's thinking of Tron time just 12 months ago, where she took 4 silvers?
I don't know whether she's thinking about that. What I do know is that with husband David, they're thinking of starting their family. They're not sure. This decision could be the one that says that we lose Dicenta and Belmondo, which would be very sad because they've enriched the circuit. Here's Sumiko Yokoyama. Sumiko's had the best series of races at these games for the Japanese. 24th over 15 kilometers, then 25th place, occupying both for the 5 and the 10, and the Japanese finishing, I think, a respectable 10th in the relay. It was never a factor that they were going to get a medal or get near a medal, but Sumiko, sister of Kumiko, she takes the family honours and flies the Japanese flag in the women's races higher than anyone else.
Well, I've been hugely impressed by the Japanese throughout. I mean, we expected medals in the ski jumping, certainly didn't expect them in the freestyle skiing, and the speed skating, well, they had a world record holder, but they've come good. They've taken 4 golds so far, an impressive run. And it's always nice for the home nation to do it, but when the home nations suffer from certain physiological disadvantages, it's even better.
Yes, Japan actually 7th in the medal table before today's competition started. Germany had a total of 24 medals, of which 9 were gold, but they've now been tied up by Chepalova, who's actually got the 9th gold for the Russian Federation. So as we speak, at this moment, it's Germany and Russia equal on gold medals, 9 apiece at the top of the table. And interestingly enough, the Norwegians, they've actually got a total of 20 medals, which was their pre-championship target. So it's time for us to take our leave from you, from Patrick Winterton and myself, David Goldstrom. Coming up, of course, Sunday morning, same time, it's the 50-kilometer freestyle for men. Will it be a day for Smirnov to defend his title? Who knows? I think the Italians will be to the fore. We'll be back with the Nordic combined very shortly, the 4x5 kilometer relay. For now, bye-bye from Hakuba.
Olympic cross country on